In the early days of the Cold War, the CIA ordered the creation of a secret program intended to find ways of mind control. They funded an army of psychiatric institutions across the United States and Canada to perform experiments on unsuspecting patients using psychedelic drugs, sensory deprivation, electroshock treatment, and more.
Beneath the surface of government operations lies a world of dark experimentation.
Other Army experiments continued on mental patients around the country.
A world where the mind becomes the battlefield. For decades, shadowy agencies have pursued the ultimate weapon, control over the human mind.
Work done at the Tulane Medical Center in New Orleans involved several drugs, hallucinogenics, and electrodes implanted in the brain.
These covert projects, often shrouded in layers of deception, aim to break, reshape, and manipulate thought itself.
How can anybody react to that? I mean, that is so far from what you'd expect from a human being, never mind a doctor, never mind a professional specialist who's supposed to care about people's minds. It's unbelievable.
How much of what we think is truly our own? Number 1, MKUltra CIA's secret pursuit of mind control. The haunting legacy of MKUltra does not rest quietly in the annals of history. In the early 1950s, during the Cold War, the CIA launched MKUltra, a project that was both sinister and clandestine. This secret project aimed at gaining control over people's minds, a weapon far more dangerous than a bomb. In the name of safeguarding the country's security, the agents released a flood of unethical tests on ordinary citizens. LSD, which was at one point a psychiatric miracle drug, was transformed into an instrument of mind control. People were given drugs without their knowledge, tortured for hours on end, and made to go insane. The aim? To break the human mind and rebuild it as a mere toy. What the CIA developed was a generation of broken minds, the paranoid echoes of which are still heard today. Just how much pressure can a mind take before it breaks? And how many more secrets are still hidden in the sands of time, yet to be discovered? Number 2, Project Bluebird.
Mind control research back home intensifies. The new goal is to cause an individual to become subservient to an imposed control, to the point where he will perform acts against his will and then have no memory of the act.
Before MKUltra, there was Project Bluebird, a chilling precursor to the CIA's mind control ambitions. Bluebird was initiated in the late 1940s to test the limits of memory manipulation. The agents were to find ways to erase memories, implant new ones, and even change the nature of human consciousness. Originally, it was an attempt to safeguard the American economy, but soon it turned into an immoral and reckless trial of people. Incarcerated people, patients with mental disorders, and even members of the armed forces were tortured. Torture, brainwashing, hypnosis, and drugs became instruments for breaking spirits and remolding them to the required form. The eerie question lingers: can we trust our memories, or have they been tampered with? Number 3, Project Artichoke. Before there was MKUltra, there was Operation Artichoke B, a program that sounds more like a garden variety venture than a sinister plot, but does not be deceived by the name. In 1951, with the Cold War intensifying, the CIA went further into mind control with Project Artichoke. This evil program was aimed at developing the perfect killer, a human being whose brain could be conditioned to go and kill and then have no recollection of the act. The methods were brutal: hypnosis, administering of drugs against the client's wish, and psychological torment. The agency's goal was clear: to remove the conscience of a person and put in its place a mechanical sense of discipline. People were dehumanized and turned into mere tools of violence against other people. Number 4, Operation Midnight Climax. a project for studying the effects of LSD on unwitting subjects in safe houses. This sub-project of MKUltra takes the concept of government surveillance to a slightly twisted James Bond level of intrigue, but with a horrifying twist. CIA safe houses in San Francisco were fitted out with one-way mirrors, and prostitutes were paid to lure unsuspecting men to these locations. Once there, these men were dosed with LSD without their consent, and agents observed their behavior as part of a study into the effects of psychoactive substances on the human mind. While this may sound like a wild party gone wrong, the ethical breaches and the blatant disregard for human rights illustrate how far government agencies have gone to toy with the mind. One can't help but ponder LSD's maker's words upon his discovery of the drug. "I did not choose LSD. LSD found and called me." Number 5. Psychic driving, MKUltra. Among a plethora of most sinister practices of MKUltra, psychic driving is notable for its crude cruelty. This dreadful procedure was developed by Dr. Ewan Cameron of the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal and aimed at rebuilding minds through brutal processes. People, including those who came to this facility for harmlessly sounding complaints, were subjected to week-long drug-aided coma and non-stop audio assault to obliterate their personalities. The war did not give the possibility for healing, but it left them with broken memories and broken minds. Number 6. Russell shock treatment. In the 1940s, the Russell shock treatment was adopted in psychiatric hospitals as one of the methods for treating severe mental disorders. Patients were given high-voltage electric shocks, which were sometimes administered without the use of anesthetic, as doctors believed it would reset the brain. The reality was far more disturbing. Patients emerged from these sessions disoriented, with their personalities altered or completely erased. The ability to govern and remodel a man's brain with the help of electrical current turned into a weapon in the hands of those who were supposed to be saviors. To some, the treatment was a horrific experience of the abyss, of going into a realm where one is no longer in control of one's thoughts. How much of our mind is under our control, and how much can be controlled by others with the turn of a dial? Number 7. Project Chatter. In 1947, Project Chatter was born out of wartime desperation, aiming to use drugs like mescaline and scopolamine to extract secrets from prisoners. The US Navy's goal was to turn the human mind into an open book, making subjects reveal their deepest secrets under chemical coercion. Administered in secrecy, these drugs often left victims psychologically scarred and vulnerable. This dark chapter forces us to confront a chilling question. How far should we go in the pursuit of security, and at what cost to the human mind? Subscribe for more revelations into the darkest corners of history. Number 8. SEER. Training. During the 1950s, the US military instituted SEER, an acronym for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape, a training regime that prepared soldiers for the worst in terms of psychological and physical abuse. Though meant to prepare for survival, SEER training was a form of torture that took soldiers to their extremes. The trainees were taken through mock interrogations, sleepless nights, and mock captivity to build up their minds against the enemy. But the line between training and torture became rather thin, and many soldiers were left traumatized. The program's techniques, later revealed to have influenced controversial interrogation methods, begged the question: where does preparation turn into abuse? In developing the ultimate warrior, have we developed the ultimate victim, a person whose mind is irrevocably damaged by becoming a warrior? Number 9. Montauk Project. The Montauk Project, also believed to have been conducted by the United States government in the late 1970s at Camp Hero, or Montauk Air Force Station, is another example of such secret activities. Although steeped in controversy and skepticism, the Montauk Project is said to have delved into psychological warfare techniques, time travel, and telepathy. The project was said to have involved a lot of children, who were considered to be easier to manipulate since they could be easily brainwashed. I thought it was a straight lift from the series Stranger Things. However, because of its secret nature and the absence of strong evidence, the Montauk Project is still considered a conspiracy theory. The notion of a government being capable of controlling and altering minds and reality also presented questions as to the limits of experimentation. To what extent is our experience influenced by factors that are out of our own volition? And if such experiments were possible, what has been kept from the general population? Number 10. Project Mockingbird. Project Mockingbird, which was initiated by the CIA in the late 1940s, was aimed at manipulating the media for the benefit of the CIA's Cold War agenda. The CIA recruited journalists and placed its people in the news outlets to manipulate the information that was given to the public. This operation was to bring the difference between journalism and propaganda, where the news was twisted to fit the government's agenda. In today's world of social media, it is possible to hear echoes of Mockingbird in new ways of manipulating the media. Social media and digital news have become the battlegrounds where misinformation, post-truths, and influence operations unfold. The main actors in this sphere are government structures and foreign agencies, who use subtle techniques to manage the information space, reproducing the practices of the Cold War. Are we still puppets in the hands of others? And how can one differentiate between the truth and lies in the age of fake news? Number 11. The Monarch Project. An alleged offshoot of MKUltra, this one delves deep into the world of conspiracy. The Monarch Project is said to be the CIA's nefarious attempt at creating the ultimate spy, a mind-controlled agent who can carry out orders without any recollection of them. The purported methodology involved the use of traumatic experiences to induce a state of dissociation, leading to the formation of alternate identities that could be triggered on command. While hard evidence of Monarch remains elusive, whispers in the corridors of power suggest it could have been a real endeavor, with chilling implications about free will and the fragility of the human mind. Number 12. Project MK Delta. Project Delta, a lesser-known CIA operation from the 1960s, focused on behavioral modification and psychological manipulation. It aimed to enhance interrogation techniques and control human behavior through experimental methods. Using drugs, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation, the project sought to push the boundaries of psychological influence. Today, the echoes of Project Delta are seen in the ongoing debates over ethical practices in psychological research and interrogation. The project's shadow looms large over contemporary discussions about human rights and the limits of psychological experimentation. What does this legacy reveal about our ongoing struggle with ethical boundaries in science? To think that the US was the only one involved in mind control would be a large fallacy. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union invested heavily in mind control research, driven by fears that the West was developing similar technologies. Number 13. Soviet mind control research. If you're surprised by what the CIA was doing, you'd be interested in knowing it wasn't the only agency playing mind games. During Joseph Stalin's reign in Soviet history, he used the most effective form of terror, psychological terror. His reign was not only about military power, but about controlling thoughts and ideas. By propaganda, corruption of values, and inducing fear, Stalin managed to build a society where the idea of opposition was impossible and the idea of disobedience was inconceivable. People even informed their neighbors and children of their parents. Stalin's perversity was to make tyranny not only possible, but necessary. Instead of merely oppressing people's free choice, he erased it from existence and turned society into a living hell of fear and conformity. Number 14. Biopreparat, Soviet Union. Biopreparat, the Soviet Union's secret biological weapons program, started in the 1970s and continued after the USSR's disintegration. Top-secret biopreparat's goals were not only to develop deadly pathogens, but also to research psychological manipulation. Scientists tried to understand how these pathogens might cause paranoia, affect cognition, or change mental states. The program aimed at creating chemical weapons that would disarm the opponents psychologically and force them to lay down arms. The fact that Biopreparat was conducting such research and crossing the ethical line was a perfect example of how far superpowers were willing to go during the Cold War. Number 15. Chinese re-education camps. Psychological experiments are happening even today. For example, Xinjiang's Chinese re-education camps, set up in 2017, are a case of modern psychological operations. Operating on Uyghur Muslims and other minorities, these camps are said by the Chinese government to be counter-terrorism. However, former detainees' accounts paint a different picture. The prisoners have to go through physical force in the form of torture, observation, and forced repatriation from their culture and beliefs in favor of the state. These tactics are intended to change people's thoughts and actions to fit the goals of the Chinese Communist Party. Like Maoist re-education camps, these camps raise serious questions about human rights and freedom of thought in the 21st century. Number 16. North Korean camps. North Korea is no different from its counterparts. Its camps, known for their brutal conditions, are also sites of intense psychological manipulation and indoctrination. Prisoners in these camps, often detained for political reasons, are subjected to a relentless regime designed to break their spirit and force them into absolute submission to the state. Methods include forced labor, starvation, and public executions, combined with constant propaganda that glorifies the ruling Kim family and denounces perceived enemies of the state. The psychological impact of these conditions is profound, with many prisoners emerging completely indoctrinated or mentally broken. North Korea's use of these camps as tools of mind control is part of a broader strategy of maintaining an iron grip on its population. Number 17. Unit 731, Japan's Dark Legacy. Who would have thought that good old Japan could have a darker side too? During World War II, Unit 731, a covert Japanese military unit, operated with chilling secrecy in Manchuria. Established by General Shiro Ishii, this unit conducted horrific biological and chemical warfare experiments on prisoners, including live dissections and pathogen exposure. Their goal was to develop biological weapons and enhance warfare tactics. Victims were subjected to extreme conditions and brutal experimentation, resulting in untold suffering and death. The legacy of Unit 731 remains a grim chapter in history, highlighting the extreme lengths to which some will go in the name of scientific advancement. As we uncover these dark truths, how do they reshape our understanding of wartime ethics and the boundaries of human experimentation? Number 18. Operation Gladio B. Another secret operation was Gladio B, conducted by NATO and the CIA during the Cold War. This covert action was an extension of Operation Gladio, a secret army in Italy and parts of the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Caucasus. The main objective of Gladio B was to fight communism and Soviet influence, and to do it at any cost and using methods that may also be ethically questionable. Similar to Biopreparat, it was shrouded in secrecy, and even those in the governments that supported it may not have been fully aware of its true purpose. The fact that such covert operations were being carried out, no matter the countries involved, raises ethical questions in the name of security for the nation during the Cold War. Number 19. DARPA's Mind Control Research. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has been associated with advanced technologies in the defense for many years. Some of the DARPA programs include the Targeted Neuroplasticity Training, which seeks to improve cognitive functions through the direct manipulation of the brain. With applications such as transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, these projects aim to control the neural activity to enhance the learning process and memorization of the soldiers. Another questionable show, Silent Talk, looked at the potential of using brainwave scan to have a conversation without ever saying a word, or in other words, mind reading. Although these technologies may bring about revolutionary changes in military and cognitive science, these technologies also pose certain ethical issues such as privacy, autonomy, and misuse. DARPA's work creates new possibilities and opens new horizons. However, it also raises questions about liberty and self-determination. Number 20. Sensory deprivation and isolation. Sensory deprivation and isolation have been used for psychological manipulation since the 1950s. Originally, these techniques aimed to induce extreme stress by depriving subjects of sight, sound, and touch, weakening their mental defenses. Employed in projects like MKUltra and torture practices at places like Guantanamo Bay, sensory isolation can lead to severe consequences, including hallucinations, anxiety, and ego dissolution. The ethical implications are profound, as these methods inflict potentially irreversible psychological damage. Despite these concerns, sensory isolation remains a tool of psychological control, illustrating the lengths to which governments might go to dominate the human mind. Number 21. Brain hacking. Brain hacking is a relatively new type of mind control that uses technology to alter people's behavior. It is different from the conventional methods that involve the use of drugs or psychological manipulation of the mind. Instead, it uses neurofeedback, brain-computer interface, and algorithms to manipulate the brain and its functions. For example, social media platforms rely on complex algorithms to influence users' perceptions and actions, what they see, what they think, and how they feel without their knowledge. Brain hacking's capabilities are that as technology advances, thoughts can be implanted or actions controlled remotely. This new form of mind control, which is a combination of psychology and technology, is a sensitive area that raises the question of whether it is right to control a person's mind or not. Number 22. China's new brain hacking system. China's method of brain hacking its citizens is best illustrated by the social credit system that uses sophisticated surveillance and data gathering to change people's behavior. This system employs more than 200 million surveillance cameras fitted with facial recognition software to track the people's activities in real time. Through monitoring the online activities and social media activities, the government rewards positive activities that are favorable to the government. Negative activities that are against the government are punished, hence creating a game-like system. Social credit score is not only about an individual's behavior, but also affects friends and family, causing pressure to conform to social credit score standards. Measures like publicizing violations are other ways of ensuring that the public obeys the law. However, as a voluntary program, the system is rather invasive and raises many issues of privacy and freedom of individuals. This kind of manipulation of behavior demonstrates a very high level of psychological warfare, which is designed to create a society that is much more in tune with what the government wants and what the government believes in. Number 23. Electromagnetic mind control. Weapons. In recent years, the unsettling concept of electromagnetic mind control weapons has emerged from the shadows. Building on Cold War-era research, these technologies aim to manipulate thoughts and behaviors using electromagnetic fields. These weapons have the potential to alter brain activity and induce psychological effects, raising alarming questions about privacy and ethical implications. As governments and militaries push the boundaries of technology, the power to control minds from a distance could become a reality. How will society safeguard against such invasive measures? And what does this mean for personal freedom? Number 24. Electronic harassment and therapy. Electronic harassment involves using technology to cause distress through devices like microwaves or directed energy weapons, aiming to disrupt victims' mental and physical well-being. Conversely, electronic therapy, using techniques like electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, or transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, has legitimate medical applications. However, concerns arise over its misuse or over-reliance, highlighting ethical dilemmas in balancing treatment benefits against potential harm. As technology evolves, safeguarding against abuse and ensuring ethical use remains crucial. Number 25. Operation Paperclip. While Operation Paperclip was not a direct mind control program, it was a precursor to the experiments to be carried out in the United States of America after the Second World War. In its wake, the US secretly airlifted more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and former Nazis to help maintain America's technological superiority over the Soviet Union. Among them, there were specialists in the field of mental influence and psychological warfare, the experience of which was used in subsequent programs. This operation, which offered immunity in exchange for expertise, illustrates a disturbing moral compromise, employing people connected with war crimes to experiment with new approaches to managing people. Number 26. The Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment in 1971 by Philip Zimbardo aimed at studying the impact of power on people. Participants were male students who were taken through a mock prison setting at Stanford University and were divided into guards and prisoners. Originally designed to last for 2 weeks, the experiment was stopped midway through the 6th day because of the psychological and emotional impact on the participants. The guards were aggressive and used abusive language, while the prisoners had severe stress and emotional disturbance. The study showed how situational factors and roles can dramatically change people's behavior, which cast light on the worst sides of human nature. Number 27. The Milgram Experiment. In the year 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that made the entire world sit up and take notes. The subjects were ordered to shock another man in another room who screamed in pain as the shocks became more severe. Despite the noise that would have horrified many, those who were commanded by an authority figure obeyed. This shocking experiment showed that it is not difficult for a man to become a monster if guided by a leader. It is for this reason that the Milgram experiment is still a powerful reminder of the obedience and the capacity of people and their ability to make moral decisions. Number 28. Transorbital lobotomy. A surgical technique employed in an attempt to modify behavior and regulate mental conditions. In the 1930s, Dr. Antonio Egas Moniz came up with the transorbital lobotomy, which was considered as a new approach in the treatment of psychiatric disorders. This procedure entailed using an instrument to gouge through the orbit to cut connections in the frontal lobes of the brain. Although it was advertised as a treatment for mental illness, it had a terrible effect. Many of them came out extremely incapacitated, unable to reason properly or even live a normal life. The consequences of the procedure show the dangers of aggressive interventions made when there is little knowledge. The question that arises is, how far can one take science before the costs outweigh the benefits? Stay curious, stay aware, and never stop questioning.